My name is Thomas Edgar Wright. I enlisted in the Army at Fort Bragg on September the 30th, 1942. I did my basic training at Keesler Field in Mississippi. After basic, I went to the radio school at Scottsville, Illinois, and did my training there. Then I was sent to Moses Lake, Washington at the air base where I met with my crew. Our crew was called the Rough Deal. We had a summer of 1943 in Moses Lake, and then we transferred from there to McDeal Field in Florida, at Tampa, Florida.
All right, hold right there, Thomas, if you will. And let's just do that check to make sure everything is good to there, and then we'll start right back over. Okay, I'm going to
In Florida, we did our flight training.
Oh, just a minute. All right, what I want you to do now is just start right here now with the beginning, and we'll take it off from That's right.
Start all over.
That's correct.
Okay.
Start over. I'm sorry, I didn't make that clear, but
okay.
you go right ahead and just hold until I drop my hand, and you start all over again.
Okay. My name is Thomas Edgar Wright. I enlisted in the Army Air Force on November the 30th, 1942 at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. From Fort Bragg, we went to Keesler Field, Mississippi for my basic training. After basic training, I was sent to Scottsville, Illinois to radio school. After completing the radio school, I was transferred to Moses Lake, Washington at the air base there. There we picked up the crew for a B-17 and did our training that summer of 1943 in Moses Lake. From there we were transferred to Tampa, Florida to the Drew Air Force Base. We completed our training in the fall over Florida and over the Gulf of Mexico. From there we were sent to Savannah, Georgia to pick up our plane. Our one crew, we were there for a while, and then we went from Savannah to West Palm Beach where we left to go overseas. We went as one crew, one plane with 10 members. We flew down through South America into Brazil. We stopped at a number of air bases. And from Brazil we went to Dakar, South Africa. From there we went to Algiers, spent a night. Then we went to Tunisia and spent a night. And then we went to Foggia, Italy at the air base, which was the 97th Bomb Group. We'd been there 3 days, and they sent us out on a crew. When we left the States, they did not issue us any heated flying clothing. They said, where you go, you will not need it. But our first mission was to Regensburg, Germany, and the temperature was 40 to 50 degrees below zero. 4 members of the crew were hospitalized because of frostbite. I stayed in the hospital there at Foggia 43 days with one finger would not heal. When I was discharged from the hospital and went back to the air base, shortly thereafter, they transferred our crew from the 15th Air Force in Italy to the 8th Air Force in England. We were the only crew to be transferred. One reason we called our crew the Rough Deal was because we felt like we got the rough deal in many respects. We did not go with a group from the States overseas, flew lone plane. When we left Italy to England, it was a lone plane. When I arrived in England, they would not let me fly because my finger had not healed. It drained constantly. And the flight surgeon sent me to the hospital to have a bone taken out of my little finger. When I came out, it still was draining. They wouldn't let me fly, and they wanted to ground me. And I asked, couldn't they do something else? He said, we could amputate that first joint of your little finger. My crew continued to fly while I was in the hospital recuperating. They were able to fly about 15 or 16 missions before I could join them. When I joined them, I flew the rest of my about 14 or 15 missions before they finished. Then I had to wait and be assigned to another crew before I could finish my missions. I flew 30 missions in all. My job was to be a radio operator. My pilot was a lead pilot, and therefore it meant that I would have to be the one who would send the messages back from various places on the mission. And after finishing my missions, I had to wait in England to come back to the States. When we arrived back in the States, I was assigned to the Air Force Base at San Antonio, Texas, the Randolph Field. In the meantime, when I arrived back to the States, my wife and I were married in March 25th, 1945, and we both went to San Antonio to live for our first 6 months of our marriage. I was discharged at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas on September the 14th, 1945. That concludes my military experience.
Thomas, could you share with us a bit about some of your feelings, any particular thoughts that you feel comfortable with? I know for a fact that 30 missions, lots of people didn't make that. And I'm sure you saw much action and many problems that arose. Is there anything you would share in that regard?
Well, on our missions, the thing we dreaded most were not the German fighter planes, but the anti-aircraft fire. One of the jobs of the radio operator was, when over the target, was to throw out tinfoil to upset the German radar system. And there was a little chute in the radio room. I would just throw out this tinfoil that was on cigarettes and chewing gum before World War II, and I would throw that out, and this would upset it. Often our plane would be hit by flak. You'd never know when and where they would, one of the shells would explode. I guess the closest I came was one day when I was putting out the tinfoil. I had to turn around from my desk, and when I turned back around, there was a piece of flak had come right up through my desk and knocked a hole in it. And so if I had not been doing that, I may have been injured.
But you were injured, and you have a Purple Heart.
Well, I got that from the amputation.
From the amputation.
I spent 43 days in the hospital in Foggia. And in England, in fact, the hospital I went to in England for the amputation, one of the conodals here in Burlington was with a surgeon he was a doctor at that hospital, and he came by to see me. I don't remember which one it was. I had to go to the hospital twice in England for this finger. And the problem was it would drain all the time. And so after 43 days at the hospital in Italy, the doctor would come in every morning and I'd hold up that one finger, men were in the hospital, shot up and everything else, but I had only one finger. But they kept me in 43 days. It just wouldn't heal. But the rest, we had these 4 persons, 3 of them with their feet frozen, and mine with the finger. My hands became complete, like I could not close my hands for hours on the flight but my other fingers, they were all right when I got down. But this one wasn't. It was swollen, very large, and it took a long time to heal.
What did you take from your Air Force experiences to share in what's it done to your life since then?
Oh,
How has it impacted you? What things have you changed? What appreciations do you have? Those kinds of things.
the thing is, when I came back to the States, I tried to put that all behind me. But as time went by, I began to reflect on it. It made me appreciate life more, I'm sure of that. The bomb crew was, our flight, the crew was very close-knit. It had to be because everyone depended on everyone else. And I didn't get a furlough the whole time I was in service. And we're getting ready to go overseas when we're at Savannah. And we'd already picked up our plane, and one of the crew members was from New York. His parents came down to visit him. And he became ill, and they gave us a 3-day pass, and I came home from Savannah to Burlington. And one of our officers on our crew, there were 4 commissioned officers, the pilot, co-pilot, bombardier, and navigator. And there were 6 enlisted men, the engineer, the radio operator, 2 waist gunners, tail gunner, and ball turret gunner. When we came home that 3-day pass, our navigator came home, and officers and enlisted men, we shared fellowship and went everywhere together. Often in the Army that wasn't done. But I think I came to appreciate the importance of cooperation with one another, because either of us could endanger the whole crew if we didn't perform our duty as it should. Now there was on the radio, in the radio room, there was a gun, but I never used the gun because my job was, since the lead radio operator, was to send messages at various points back to the base. I think maybe what I learned, the importance of cooperation with persons.